Okay, now the cross-collateralization clause is a clause in the fine print when you set up an account at a bank. It's in the bank account, fine print. Most of you have already signed one and don't even know it and don't know what it means. But it means it's the bank saying, oh, by the way, when you set up an account at our bank, you are also agreeing that if you should happen to borrow any money from our bank or get any credit from our bank, like maybe even a credit card, you are pledging all of the money in your bank account as additional collateral for that loan or that debt. And if we decide that you're not looking like you're going to be able to repay us on that loan or that credit, we have the legal right to call in the entire amount of the loan. And if you can't pay it, we also have the legal right to seize all the funds in your bank account and apply that against what you owe us on the loan. So this is the way that bankers, when they decide that your business may be failing and they are worried about whether or not you're going to sell off the assets of the business before they shut you down and seize the assets you have left to sell to pay down their debt, this is how they shut your doors, the doors of your business, before you're ready to let it go. You wake up one morning, you just paid all the bills and you were struggling, but you know that you had enough money in the bank to pay the bills you had to pay. But you wake up one morning and you're getting angry phone calls from all over town, all your suppliers and creditors, and they're saying, hey, your check bounced. And you say, what? That can't be. I mean, I've been a little tight lately on the money, but I know I had enough money in there to pay those bills before I sent you those checks. It must be a mistake at the bank. So you run down to the bank to see what's happening, and the banker says, well, we're sorry, but we've been watching your business, and it looks to us like you're going under and you're probably not going to be able to pay the loan, or maybe you missed a payment or two already. And so we decided it's time for you to shut your doors. So we exercised our rights under the cross-collateralization clause, and we seized all the funds in your bank account. So all of a sudden you're out of business, whether you've decided it's time to be out of business or not. You don't have any money left in your bank account to pay your employees. You don't have any money left in there to pay the rent on your facility. And so basically you're out of business. You don't even have enough money to hire a lawyer to fight the bank, because all your cash is gone. The bank seized it all. So you have no choice but to shut your doors. Now, what can you do about that? Well, it would be great if you could go to a bank and say, hey, I'm not going to sign your cross-collateralization clause, but they'll just say, fine, you're not going to have a bank account here and you're not going to have a loan here. So you can't do that. So is there anything else you can do? Well, what I recommend is that even if the bank requests that you have your main business bank account at their bank in exchange for the favor of them loaning you money, if you can afford it, you always have at least one reserve bank account at some other bank. Keep a little bit of money in a reserve bank account at some other bank, so that if you do get into trouble financially and your main bank seizes the funds in your primary business bank account, at least you have a little bit of cash available to decide whether or not you're going to hire a lawyer to sue the bank, or whether you're going to try to keep the doors open for another month or two, pay the employees and pay the rent, and figure out a way to get some alternative financing or whatever it is you have to do to try to save your business. Because you want to be the one who decides when it's time to close the doors of your struggling business, not the bank. Okay, so that's the cross-collateralization clause. You will see that on a test in this course. I've seen too many people have their lives ruined by not knowing what that means. Now, we get to another really kind of interesting human thing that goes on when a bank decides it's time to shut down your business. This is a pattern of behavior that I saw with bankers. When I was a young attorney, I worked with a lot of different banks and bankers. And when I was first starting out, very young attorney, didn't know much of anything yet, a banker came into my law office and he said, there's a crooked business owner down at the mall. He owns a retail store down there, and he hasn't paid his payments on his loan to us. And we were about to seize all of his assets, but he filed a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And because he filed that bankruptcy, he has the protection of the automatic stay, the freeze that goes into effect when you file a bankruptcy, and we can't do anything to seize our assets. And what we think he's doing is keeping the store open, and he's selling the inventory of the store out the back door, and that's our collateral for our loan. So our loan collateral is going out the back door, and we're not getting paid. So this no good, dirty, rotten scoundrel crook that owns this store down at the mall, we want you to go down to the bankruptcy court and find some way to get him kicked out of the Chapter 11 bankruptcy so that we can go ahead and seize our assets. So I'm all fired up to go down there and get this dirty, rotten crook store owner. And I get down there and I meet the guy for the first time. And it's this sweet little old man. He owns a toy store, a little toy store in the mall called Little Puffer Billy. And this is the kind of guy, this little old guy, he probably was an Eagle Scout when he was a boy. He's probably never lied, cheated, or stolen anything in his life. And he's just struggling. He's embarrassed because he can't make his payments because the entire economy of the state of Oregon was in collapse at the time. And also the mall had allowed a national toy store chain to open up a competing toy store against him in the same mall. So he's really struggling. But the guy never did anything dishonest in his life. So I'm looking at this and I say, well, where's the disconnect between what the banker told me about what a no-good, dirty, rotten crook this guy was and the reality of the sweet, innocent little old man I'm looking at in front of me? And after I became more experienced, I began to see bankers are human beings just like you and I. Believe it or not, most of them have a heart, and they do not sleep well at night when they pull the plug on your business. They know you struggled and suffered and spent a lifetime building up that business. They know that's how you support your family, your wife and your kids, or your husband and your kids. And they don't feel good about pulling the plug on somebody's business. But sometimes that's what they have to do if they want to have a job. So if you hide out from them and they don't see you, you're embarrassed because you can't make your payments, so you just don't show up at the bank anymore for a while. What they do, not necessarily consciously, but unconsciously, is they begin to create a mythology about who you are. And the stuff they make up about who you are is always what a dirty, rotten scoundrel crook you are, because that justifies them seizing the assets of your business and shutting you down. So my point is, and the other thing that I saw in this behavior pattern is, if you are not the guy who's too embarrassed to face up to your banker because you missed a payment or two, if you go down to the bank and you're talking to that banker every week or every day and telling him what's going on and why you're struggling and how much time you need and ask him to work with you, I've seen the same banker that'll make up a dirty story about one guy and shut him down in a heartbeat. I've seen him stretch out for months longer than he should wait for someone who hasn't made any payments. I've seen bankers risk their entire career stretching out for a guy because the guy was honest with them and came in and saw him every day, and the banker didn't have a chance to make up a mythology about what a dirty, rotten crook he was. So if your business is in trouble and you're having trouble making payments with the bank, do not hide out from the banker. Do not allow him to make up a mythology about who you are. Go down and see him and talk to him, and he won't be able to make up that myth. And by the way, that myth exists in a lot of places other than just banking. We do this stuff at times with friends. We do it with enemies. We do it with loved ones, brothers and sisters. We do it with the person that we marry. When you're having a fight, an argument, and you're in that cold, that long, cold, deadly silence phase, you know, the most dangerous phase to any relationship is not when you're yelling and screaming at each other. It's when you go into the long, cold silence mode, because that's when you make up the mythology about the other people and you start running the list of all the bad things they've done to you and all the things that are wrong with them and all the justifications you have for doing something rotten to them. And have you noticed, by the way, that when we go to war and we kill people, we hardly ever talk about actual people that we're killing? We have to make up some kind of a dehumanizing name for them. We don't kill people. We kill the Krauts, the Heineys, the Japs, the Slopes, the Kong, the Black Pajamas, the towel heads in the Middle East. And one of the most painful ones I've heard, that was first told to me by an African American soldier is the sand niggers. We have to make up some kind of a dehumanizing name and dehumanize people to make it a little bit more okay for us to kill them. Well, what if we just couldn't do that anymore? What if we had an inner discipline that said no more dehumanizing of other human beings? We might be able to end wars and have marriage relationships that lasted, and sibling relationships that lasted, and friendships that lasted. Who knows what the possibilities would be if we could just stop dehumanizing other human beings.